Hi, I'm Russ. I wanted to give you a perspective on the LA fires from a fire protection engineering side of things. Occasionally, at my site, my Department of Energy site, I have people come to my office, and I'm the chief fire protection engineer and AHJ for that campus, and they come asking me questions. So today, I had a couple of people come to my office and ask me questions, kind of more the conspiracy theory type stuff about the LA fires. So I thought I'd just share what I told them regarding their questions. So the first question is, I had a gentleman come to me and say, well, hey, these fires completely destroyed buildings, and yet the trees seem to still be standing. Why is that? It obviously proves there's something diabolical at hand, such as lasers from the sky, or whatever it may be. So here's the numbers. This is how it works out. If you look at the moisture content of living trees, it's approximately 200%. It's based upon dry weight, and that's why it exceeds 100%. So uh, normally the moisture content has to be under 50% for it to ignite from a small fire. Typically, your homes are going to have combustibles used in the construction. The moisture content of wooden homes is about 12% typically. So if you ignite that in the presence of oxygen, it's going to burn vigorously. Keep in mind that water, what it does is there's a phase change to steam that takes an enormous amount of energy. And that's why things that are wet simply won't burn. So here's a picture from the Palisades fire. It shows a variety of trees that individuals like this engineer that came to my office this morning has seen on Facebook and other sources that are claimed as proof that this was, something not natural. Clearly was natural and expected condition. The other question I had today was, well, hey, how is it that these fires melted cars? It's not possible. Okay, let's just think about it. Generally speaking, the melting point of aluminum depends on your source. Typically, pure aluminum is about 1220 degrees Fahrenheit. Comes out to be about 660 degrees Celsius, thereabouts. Flame tip temperature, generally speaking, is on the order of about 1960 degrees Fahrenheit, about 1000 degrees Celsius. So, a fire can clearly melt aluminum. In this image here, it shows a car with these streams of puddled aluminum. Steel is not going to melt at those temperatures. You're not going to have melted steel, but you will have melted and pooling other metals as well as alloys. And here's a kicker a lot of people don't realize. What you can do is cold alloy copper. So if you have molten aluminum that falls on copper, copper typically has about a 1960 degree Fahrenheit melting point. But you can actually melt copper at a much lower temperature when it's mixed with molten aluminum. It alloys. It's called a eutectic alloy. Consider tin lead as an example. Standard solder. It has a much lower alloying melting point than either of the two components in a pure state. It's just a function of material science. So the melting of certain metals, non-steel, and be clear, this isn't steel, and you're not going to see steel melted in this fire. But this isn't anything nefarious. It's something that's expected. Okay. Let's take a look at the growth of the fire. There's multiple fires, but let's look specifically at the Palisades fire. So what you had between January 7th and January 11th, that fire is still going on. It's not fully controlled, but it's slowing growth. So January 7th, about 2 in the afternoon, you had 700 acres. A day later, you jumped up to 15,000 acres. Now keep in mind, the wind is blowing from the east. It's blowing, with gusts up to 70 miles per hour. Very rapid fire growth. By January 9th, you're only growing another, a couple thousand acres more. Same thing on the 10th, jumped another couple thousand. January 11th, another 1,000. So clearly, you're hitting a point where the inflection is causing a lowering in the acceleration of growth. If you take a look, though, at something else, now this is interesting. So another gentleman came to my office, and look, engineers typically are fairly bright people, and maybe that's why they probe, they ask questions, and I think that's fabulous. But I had another gentleman come to my office this morning talking about lasers from satellites starting fires. Okay, sorry. I have an open mind and I respect anybody, but look, anything's possible. Okay, straight up. When you're doing any kind of analysis regarding an in-depth fire safety strategy, one fundamental principle associated with anything is that you're only going to have one fire, one independent fire happen at any given time. And that's all you're designing for, whether it's suppression or alarm systems or means of egress or your fire barriers within a structure. So how is it you have multiple fires going almost at the same time that are separated by several miles? So just take a look at the various fires. These are the fires as of today, January 13th. You had this large Palisades fire that started on the 7th. You have this Kenneth fire, and the Archer fire, and the Hearst fire, and the Sunset fire, the Eaton fire. All these are burning simultaneously. What caused that? Let's take a look at the distance. So between Malibu and El Monte, you're looking at 38 miles. Generally speaking, the firebrands, they're going to extinguish themselves when they're lofted into the atmosphere after about a mile. You could go a mile and a half, but the reality is you're not going to be going, just from Malibu to Hearst, let's say, using the scale, 20 miles. It's just not going to happen. So you got to ask yourself, are these dependent fires or independent fires? Well, what is the dependent variable? That is weather conditions. You have power lines. If you have 70-mile-an-hour winds, is it possible that power lines in multiple locations could have ignited brush? It's possible. I did listen to commentary from a gentleman that did witness the origins of the Palisades fire. He claimed there was no lightning, there was no power lines in the vicinity of where it started. I can't really comment on some of these other fires, but I can tell you this. It's highly improbable, given the direction here, from the east blowing to the west, that the fires would have spread via wind and firebrands. So the dependent variable is not going to be the firebrands being lofted. It's some other factor. Now, whether that's nefarious, individuals, arsonists, things like that, you can't rule out anything. But it is something a little bit different. So that might possibly fit into the realm of conspiracy theories. But as far as moisture content of vegetation, as far as melted metal, no, it's very expected. The growth of the Palisades fire, in that former slide I showed you 2 slides back, very expected. What's unusual are these bizarre distances between individual fires. That's kind of an unexpected scenario. So I don't know what caused that. More research needs to be done on that, but it's definitely not through firebrands. That just isn't plausible. There's other factors. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I appreciate your time and hope you got something out of this video. Have a good day.